about a similar journey of self-discovery, specifically within the context of education, to understand how and why we learn best. Please welcome junior Rachel Clark.
Take a look at this slide. It's pretty easy to read, right? Looking at the slide, you can tell those words are spelled wrong and the letters are out of order. However, it only takes a second for you to understand what it actually says. 9 years ago, this correctly spelled slide will look the same to me as the garbled one before it, as did every book, sign, letter, or homework assignment. I was able to read at the correct level for a second grader because, as it was for you, it's pretty easy to understand what something says, even when slightly jumbled. I was at my brother's basketball game in the second grade when my mom discovered that I was struggling with my learning. She asked me to tell her the letters that were on a big poster taped on the side of the gym wall. I squinted and focused all of my energy on reading the letters to my mom, until I failed to read them in the correct order, and for some of them, I simply could not see them. This instance, combined with my falling behind in school, specifically in the subjects English and math, led my parents and teachers to become increasingly concerned. They noticed that I could read, but could not spell. I could not differentiate between the plus or minus signs, and I was suffering from frequent and painful headaches. All of this led to a year of eye therapy, many doctor visits, and prescription glasses for a short period of time. It wasn't until I met with a doctor who specialized in academic skill disorders that I was diagnosed with a series of visual and learning disabilities. We learned that my inability to differentiate between the plus or minus signs was a result of a black-on-white impairment, and the frequent, painful headaches stemmed from my brain constantly overcompensating to try and piece the letters together. I've spent long periods of time with tutors, teachers, doctors, and my parents to help me overcome these challenges and teach me the ways that I learn best. For example, at a series of doctor's appointments, I was asked to point out which of 3 words was spelled incorrectly. At the beginning, this task was incredibly challenging, but with the help of my doctor, I was eventually able to point out the misspelled word in under 10 seconds. Although I'm still a terrible speller, I'm sure if you all saw the first draft of my speech without spell check, it would have looked something like that first slide I showed you. And I need and use extra time to complete my tests. I no longer suffer from those terrible headaches and can see and comprehend letters and numbers almost perfectly. The process of understanding and utilizing tactics to help me learn changed my life drastically. Obviously, not everyone will be diagnosed with a learning disability. However, determining how you learn best can dramatically improve memory, decision-making, and performance. First, let's examine learning styles. Thousands of psychologists have done extensive research, and there are many theories on what the learning styles are. One of the most commonly known is known as the VAK theory, which is the theory that people learn best either visually, auditorily, or kinetically. The basis of this theory is that these 3 learning styles stem from 3 different parts of the brain. Visual learners have neural strength in the occipital lobe, which is the part of the brain that manages sight. The temporal lobe is important for auditory functioning, and the motor cortex and cerebellum accounts for the majority of our kinetic learning. However, it is important to note that many different aspects factor into someone's learning style. Cognitive psychologists propose that people learn based on their environment. Certain students may learn best while independent from others, while some are collaborative, and still many work best in a competitive learning environment. As a result, classes should be taught with a mix of different activities to cater to all students. If a class was based solely on a PowerPoint lecture and book reading, those who do not excel in visual learning will be put at an unfair disadvantage. It is crucial that our school systems implement a curriculum to avoid classes based on one style of learning. From Albert Einstein to Steve Jobs, it is demonstrated throughout history that there are some who excel in their careers but perform poorly in the classroom due to their learning styles not being fairly represented. Many mathematicians, entrepreneurs, Olympians, and musicians have a uniquely designed system that they have created for themselves in their careers in order to maximize their strength and eliminate their weaknesses. So this begs the question, how do we find out how we learn best? How do we create a unique system for ourselves in order to bring out our full potential? If you Google, "what is my learning style?" you will be bombarded by hundreds of different quizzes and questionnaires designed to match you to a specific learning style. Yet, as we've discussed, this cookie-cutter approach is not what will help us succeed. I have found that the most efficient way to discover how you learn is to think of how you recall information. When you hear a song, does it remind you of the place that you were the first time you heard it? Or when you bake a cake, does it take you back to when your mom or dad first taught you to cook? And when you watch kids' movies, does it remind you of the movies that you used to watch as a child? When you don't want to forget something, do you say it out loud over and over again? Do you write it down? Or do you put the item you can't forget in a place that you'll see it before you leave? I'm sure many are thinking, I do all of those things, or just a few, and still some may not do any at all. That's precisely my point. Your learning style is not a word or even a few words, but rather a combination of tactics and strategies that combined will maximize your performance. I have found that I study best by myself after I've exercised while watching a video demonstration, and then I take notes, and then I later read those notes out loud. That's a learning style that I can guarantee you would not get as an answer on one of those online quizzes. Personally, I am more auditory, as I love to listen to the audio version of my textbook, and then I later read those out loud. People are different, and therefore everyone will develop in a unique way of learning and processing new information. Not only do people have unique learning styles, but they are also always changing. One day I might grow my kinetic style, and it may overcome as the way that I learn best. I want you all to go over a time that you have performed at your best recently. What tactics did you use to achieve that goal? Solidify that routine and examine how you can incorporate those strategies into your everyday life. Creating a system to help you learn by discovering your learning style will dramatically improve overcoming challenges, develop a strong work ethic, help you improve memory, and like it did for me, change the way you perform for the rest of your life. Thank you.